Hey Ben, it's been a while. Solomon from DC.
Wow, Solomon, I feel like you're the prodigal son. You've returned. How's it going, bud?
Good, good. When I heard Harvey was coming on, I had to tune in again and just listen in the side because I love just hearing him talk. I can hear him talk for hours.
Yeah.
I've loved him since I think, November when he was on Sam Cedars talking about the Four Freedoms that I first found out about him in his book. But he said about the Four Freedoms, I was really hoping that Bernie would kind of, I don't know if you remember the Hope poster from 2008, but make the Four Freedoms a slogan or an image of the campaign,
Hmm.
have a hope poster version of the Four Freedoms of the freedom from want, freedom from fear, freedom of religion, freedom of speech
Hmm.
in modern context.
Yeah.
Especially freedom, and it'd be very easy. Freedom of religion, all religions, in the context of all the hate mongering and fear
Hmm.
mongering against Muslims in this country. I feel like a lot of messaging for what the four freedoms in the 21st century, including the freedom from want, which is what no one would talk about, would be
Yeah.
like. And so I still hold out hope that maybe that would be a general election pivot if he did. But I also did want to mention something you were talking about earlier about the polling that you and a lot of other progressive YouTube channels and sites have been talking about. The polling with Hillary Clinton showing that this race has been tightening, and that even as all the trolls and people on the internet are acting like it's nothing, the Hillary Clinton campaign has already said, according to Politico, that they are expecting a tight race with
Yep.
Trump
Yep.
in the general election if she were to win. So, do you think the case can be made in the next few weeks to convince the few primaries that are left to create bigger victories and superdelegates to switch to say this is the reason superdelegates exist? Like, okay, nobody likes superdelegates, but if one of the candidates who looks
Is
like
we?
is going to be picked is
Yeah.
going to lose to someone like Donald Trump,
Yeah.
this is the moment where the entire reason they exist supposedly is supposed to be to make sure the strongest candidate wins. And I think we're on the 91st poll in a row showing that Bernie is a stronger candidate. And it was different way back when it was like, okay, Hillary wins by 8% and
Right.
Bernie wins by 20%. Okay, it'd be really nice to have a 20%, but an 8% win isn't bad. That was pretty much the margin for John McCain and Obama in '08,
Yeah.
and that was a landslide.
Yeah.
But her winning by two, losing by two,
Yeah.
tying in swing states,
Yeah.
losing in swing states, that's not good.
Yeah.
No,
She's
like that argument, I don't know if you saw the argument I had on Twitter, but there was no polling in '08 and '12 showing Obama
that
losing
close.
swing states at any point, even
Right.
early on. None of them. It showed all of them winning by high single digits, double digits, and that's what happened in
That's
Ohio and
exactly.
Pennsylvania and Colorado and
You know
Nevada.
what?
It was never close.
And that's the reality, Solomon. The reality is that there is a tone deafness by the Democratic base, and I'm going to call it the Democratic base because the someone wanted to correct me and say the Democratic establishment, but at this point the base really are those people who are going to be loyal to the party, and those establishment players are this is their base, this is their party, right? This is the who the Democratic Party wants, and they are for the most part sticking their heads in the sand to reject this information. Despite the fact that Hillary Clinton, like you pointed out, Solomon, Hillary Clinton is making moves and already setting the expectation that this is going to be a close race. Now, to your question, and thanks for the call, man. I'll answer it offline. And but to
No
to
problem.
to answer your question though, he it depends on where the heads of the super delegates are, right? Because there is this gross assumption. And when I say gross, I don't mean in a sickening sense, but just this ridiculous assumption of Hillary Clinton being well, I don't want to use that phrase in regard to a presidential candidate, being impervious to um, to political weakness, right? They thought she was the political superwoman. And there is a complete rejection of the idea that she could possibly lose to Donald Trump. That rejection and that assumption of inevitability and this assumption of superhuman political strength to overcome anything is leading to her being in a very close race with Donald Trump. If we're just talking about general election, we're still in the primaries, yes, but we're looking at some polls that actually have some bearing on what November will look like if Hillary Clinton is there. And she is not impervious. She is not immune. She is not invincible. She is not. But the assumption that she has been and will be is what's going to undermine her the most. And so about those super delegates, it's where is their head? Are they viewing this through the lens of this summer when everyone in the world assumed that Hillary Clinton was going to be the next president? Or are they viewing it through the lens of the current polling data and the fact that she's polling this poorly against someone like Donald Trump? I think you have to weight these results even more heavily, because we're talking about someone like Donald Trump who barely polls higher than cockroaches. I don't have to go through the litany of things that he's less popular than, like I did yesterday. But the reality of it is, if Hillary Clinton was going against someone like John Kasich, she would be getting her butt handed to her on a platter. And she is only doing this good. The only person she would have done better against was Ted Cruz, right? Ted Cruz is the only person who, because he's the Zodiac killer, he's the only person that actually is less liked than Donald Trump. But they're not running against Ted Cruz. They're potentially going to run against Donald Trump. And so for her to be polling this poorly against someone like Donald Trump really shows you how much the average American is either not interested in Hillary, not motivated by Hillary, or downright rejects Hillary. And there is a misconception, and Nick, I'm gonna get you in here to Nick in one moment, but there is a misconception about the base or the establishment or whatever you want to call them versus America. The Democratic establishment, the Democratic base, the people who overwhelmingly vote in the primaries, the people who would never change their registration to independent, those voters, those people want Hillary Clinton. And they expect that because they want Hillary Clinton, that everybody wants Hillary Clinton. And this is the argument we were having online today. Thank you, Solomon, for reminding me of this. Maybe I need to get into some more of these Twitter fights. I've been laying low for a little while just because I'm busy as shit. But here, just because someone wins a primary does not mean they can win the general election. Right? There's this overwhelming arrogance and ignorance. It's both arrogant and ignorant to assume that just because Hillary Clinton can win the primary, that she is going to be stronger in the general election. This is not, like one of my friends on Twitter, this is not the NBA playoffs, where if the Cavs get past, if the Cavs can't get past the semifinals, then they are not worthy to be in the finals. This is not how politics works. It's not based solely on the performance of an individual player. It's not based on the performance or the strength of your star player. It's based on public opinion of your star player. And so it is very possible, in fact, it happens during every single election. It is very possible for us to simultaneously have a person who is strong with their base, who is wanted by their base, and then they end up losing the general election because their base does not reflect the desires of the average American. I said all of that to say, don't assume that because Hillary Clinton is winning the primaries that she would perform better in the general election. That does not follow. logically. It does not. And this, I mean, let's look at it this way. John Kasich, everyone knows that John Kasich would perform better against Hillary Clinton, but he performed the worst in the primaries. Everybody knows that. Everybody accepts that because the polling data bears that out. Yet, when it comes time to have the same exact conversation about who's going to perform better against Donald Trump, they want to deny that same exact logic. It goes back to the very thing we're talking about at the top. They want to reject the logic that John Kasich performs better than Donald Trump, even though John Kasich can't get out of the primaries. They reject the idea that Bernie Sanders would perform better against Donald Trump just because Bernie Sanders may not be able to win over the Democratic base. And so even though the Democratic base rejects Bernie Sanders, the American population is overwhelmingly saying, we really don't know if we're going to choose Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump. Whereas with Bernie Sanders, they say they will handedly, decidedly accept Bernie Sanders over Donald Trump. Right now, I think the real clear average today was 13 points in favor of Bernie Sanders compared to 6 points in favor of Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump, respectively. So miss me with all of these side of the road analyses of political polling data, when the reality of it is there's always someone who wins the primaries who can't win the general election. We see it every election. Somebody wins their primaries and they lose the general election. Just because you win your base does not guarantee that you're going to win the general election. And people know this. They know this because they can see it and apply it to someone that they disagree with, but they can't apply it to themselves. It's like they have this blind spot. They can speak all of this truth against someone else, but when that mirror has to be reflected back on themselves, they get shit stupid crazy. Like they really just reject the very basic things that we accept as normal. And I wonder if now at this point, would Hillary Clinton supporters start rejecting climate change data if it really worked against Hillary Clinton? Would they go as far as to reject some fundamental truths that we as progressives and Democrats and people on the left in general have accepted, because it goes, or it is contradictory, or it is detrimental to Hillary Clinton's narrative? Because the narrative that is true right now is that even though the Democratic base is giving this to Hillary Clinton, that does not mean, no, let me be more forthright. The Democratic base is giving the primaries to Hillary Clinton, but it is not guaranteeing her the general election. In fact, Bernie Sanders will perform better in the general election. Every poll for 91 consecutive polls has bared that out. And I don't care what you credit it to. None of those factors are going to change. Hillary Clinton is still going to be disliked. Hillary Clinton is still going to have to go up against 25 years of some propaganda, some missteps of her own. She's still going to have to answer for the fact that she's under federal investigation. She still has to deal with all of these things that is not going away. And yet somehow magically they expect for all of us to change our mind and all of a sudden say, well, I guess Hillary Clinton is best after all. Where is the mental disconnect, Nick? I don't understand. I don't understand it. We've been trying to figure this out all day. We could talk about this. We have about 15 more minutes, 13 more minutes before we get out of here. But it's just frustrating the hell out of me because people are rejecting sound logic and arguments that they've used against conservatives and Republicans because it's inconvenient for them.